I love you.
There are many kinds of childhood pain. Some are loud, filled with shouting, conflict, and chaos.
I love
But some are quiet, almost invisible to the outside world. Neglect is one of those invisible wounds. It doesn't leave bruises on the skin. Instead, it leaves scars on the heart. Scars that shape how a person loves, trusts, and sees the world for the rest of their life. This is the story of what neglect does to a child, and how that child grows into an adult, carrying echoes of an unmet need. This is a story not of blame, but of understanding. Understanding the psychology of those who were left alone too often, ignored too often, or made to feel like their needs didn't matter. Let's step into that inner world. When people hear the word neglect, they often imagine extreme cases, children left without food or shelter. And while that is certainly neglect, there's another form that is much more common and just as damaging: emotional neglect. Emotional neglect happens when a child's feelings, fears, and desires are dismissed or ignored, when comfort is not given, when no one listens, when no one notices the child's emotional world. Neglect is not only what was done to the child, but also what was not done. A child doesn't need perfection. A child doesn't need parents who always say the right words. What a child needs most is presence. Someone who sees them, hears them, and responds. When this doesn't happen, the child learns a painful lesson. My feelings don't matter. And that belief becomes the foundation of their adult personality. Imagine a child calling out from their room, and no one comes. Imagine a child crying quietly, and no one notices. Imagine a child excitedly trying to show something, and nobody looks up. Eventually, that child stops calling, stops showing, stops trying. The psychology of that child becomes built around silence. Children who experience neglect learn early that emotionally reaching out is pointless. Their nervous system adapts. Their brain rewires. Their behavior shifts. They pull inward. They shrink themselves. They become observers instead of participants. On the outside, they may look calm, quiet, or easy, but on the inside, they are starving. Because emotional neglect doesn't create tough children, it creates lonely ones. Adults often believe that children forget, but the body never forgets. The nervous system remembers. The heart remembers. Even if the mind cannot form clear memories, the emotional patterns are carved deep. People who are neglected in childhood often develop a deep fear of asking for help. They fear being a burden. They fear rejection. They fear being seen as needy or weak, because every time they asked for something as a child and heard silence, the silence became a message: you are alone. And so they grow up learning to carry everything by themselves. Neglected children grow into adults with certain predictable patterns, not because they choose them consciously, but because those patterns once kept them safe. 1. The self-reliant persona. They rely only on themselves because relying on others never worked. They become hyper-independent, not out of strength, but out of fear. Independence becomes their armor. 2. The emotional freeze. Neglect teaches children that expressing feelings leads nowhere. So they become adults who struggle to identify what they feel. They go numb. They detach. They coast through life like ghosts inside their own bodies. 3. Hypervigilance. Even in the quiet moments, there is tension, like a constant readiness for disappointment. They scan the environment for signs of abandonment, even when nothing is wrong. 4. Avoidance of intimacy. Closeness feels dangerous, not comforting. The idea of depending on someone else triggers anxiety. Love feels unpredictable. Vulnerability feels unsafe. 5. People-pleasing. Some neglected children cope by trying to earn attention. They become overly accommodating, overly nice, overly responsible. They learn to meet everyone else's needs while ignoring their own.
One of the most heartbreaking consequences of childhood neglect is the difficulty adult survivors have in accepting love, even when it is freely offered. Imagine a person who has never tasted sweetness. When someone gives them sugar, the taste is foreign, confusing, even overwhelming. They don't know how to receive it. Someone who grew up emotionally hungry does not know what to do with emotional nourishment. They question it, doubt it, push it away, sabotage it. Not because they don't want love, but because they fear losing it. In their mind, love is temporary, unreliable, unpredictable, something that can disappear without warning, just as attention and warmth disappeared in their childhood. To a neglected child, needs equals danger. Needs always led to disappointment. Needs always led to rejection. So the adult version of that child develops a complicated relationship with their own needs. They minimize their desires, apologize for existing, stay silent when they want something, avoid asking for support, pretend everything is fine. Neglect teaches the child one lesson above all. Needing is unsafe. And so they build their adult identity around needlessness. Many people think neglect leads to low self-esteem, but neglect does something deeper. It creates an internal voice that criticizes, punishes, and shames. Because when a child receives no emotional validation, they start to believe the lack of attention is their fault. They begin to tell themselves, I'm not important. I don't matter. I shouldn't speak. I'm too much. I'm unlovable. That voice follows them into adulthood, whispering in moments of vulnerability, sabotaging relationships, destroying confidence. Neglect often produces coping mechanisms that seem normal to others. A neglected person might appear calm, quiet, self-contained, independent, emotionally stable, mature. But beneath that surface is fear, sadness, emptiness, self-doubt, a fear of needing, a fear of being rejected. These coping strategies are not signs of strength.
They are signs of survival. Neglect doesn't only produce sadness, it also produces anger. But because neglected children learn that emotional expression is pointless, they never express it outwardly. Instead, the anger turns inward. It becomes self-criticism, self-blame, self-neglect, self-sabotage. They punish themselves for the emotional abandonment they experienced. Healing from childhood neglect takes time, patience, and compassion, but it is possible. The first step is recognizing the patterns without shame. Understanding that these behaviors were not chosen, they were learnt for survival. Healing begins when the neglected adult understands, my needs are valid, my feelings matter. I deserved love as a child. The nervous system needs new experiences of safety, new experiences of emotional connection, new experiences of being seen and heard. Healing often looks like learning to name emotions, ask for support, set boundaries, accept love, express needs, breathe through anxiety, practice vulnerability. It is not easy, but it is transformative. At the heart of healing is a simple truth. The inner child is still there, still needing comfort, still needing presence, still needing validation, still needing love. Reparenting means becoming the adult that child needed. Gentle, attentive, consistent, compassionate. It means speaking to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. It means learning to listen to the parts of you that were silenced. Awareness is the moment the cycle begins to shift. When someone realizes, I wasn't neglected because I was unworthy. I was neglected because my caregivers weren't able to give me what I needed. This reframes everything. Self-blame dissolves. Self-hate softens. Self-understanding grows. Awareness brings freedom. People who were neglected in childhood often carry pieces of brokenness, but they also carry something else. Resilience. They learnt to cope, to survive, to navigate emotional loneliness. With healing, they often become deeply empathetic, emotionally intelligent, strong listeners, compassionate friends, intuitive partners, introspective thinkers. Their pain gives them insight. Their wounds make them wise. Their loneliness makes them attentive to others. Neglect shaped them, but it does not define their destiny. Neglect is the quietest trauma. It's a wound that hides beneath the surface, shaping a person from within. But once that wound is understood, once it is named, once it is held with compassion, something powerful happens. The adult begins to reclaim what the child never received. They learn to feel. They learn to trust. They learn to open. They learn to love. They learn to be loved. The psychology of childhood neglect is not just a story of pain. It is also a story of transformation. It is the journey from invisibility to visibility, from emotional starvation to emotional nourishment, from silence to voice, from loneliness to connection. And ultimately, it is the story of a person learning, perhaps for the first time in their life, that they matter.